In this video I will demonstrate few issues with the redundant constraint analysis, also degrees of freedom analysis for this simple assembly with patterns. So as you can see here, now I have an indication of redundant constraint for the mate constraint that constrains the YZ plane of this dowel, that is the first element in the assembly, with the origin axis of the part. So this is obviously wrong, because this constraint is not redundant. It is not taking any degrees of freedom that are defined by other constraints in this assembly. And what is interesting, when I delete the pattern, the redundant constraint message or indication disappears. So basically this constraint is perfectly okay until I apply a pattern. But the pattern generally has nothing to do, because the pattern does not constrain any of the elements with anything. It is only replicating the given element along some axis. I can even edit it, and I can change the axis to, let's say, the axis of the hole, and it is still okay. So basically the pattern makes inventor to validate the constraint set of this assembly wrongly. So once pattern is here, the indication of the redundant constraint is there, and also when the pattern is not here, the redundant constraint is not shown. So basically the pattern makes inventor to validate the assembly in the bad way. And probably this is also true for the degrees of freedom in case the pattern is there. Also, this assembly shows, currently it shows no degrees of freedom that are free for components. Also, when we go to the degree of freedom analysis and we perform the analysis, we see that basically the elements in the pattern, in the assembly, have no degrees of freedom, which is not true, because this dowel has two valid position, two perfectly valid position in this assembly that are meeting the defined constraint set, and it is possible to bring this dowel into another position in the assembly. So as you can see here, the dowel is fully constrained and it is in different place than it was just a second ago, and this is not indicated here. So basically this element has still a degree of freedom, that is ability to be in two fully defined positions, not fully defined, in two positions that are defined by the constraint set, but its position is not specified exactly within the assembly, because there are two solutions. So in terms of the degrees of freedom analysis, this element has a degree of freedom. So the result of the degrees of freedom analysis for this assembly is also wrong in terms of the strict solution, and this is one of the problems why in the end components in the flexible assemblies are flipped around everywhere. One of the problems, because there are many more. So basically, what is wrong in this assembly? This dowel can be in two positions that meet the defined constraints, but it is not indicated as having any degree of freedom. So basically this is not consistent. And the other thing is, this mate constraint that is not indicated as redundant becomes indicated as redundant if I do a pattern in this assembly, which is also wrong, because the pattern has nothing to do with constraints, and previously defined constraint set should be okay even if the pattern is here. So this is indication of the influence of having pattern in the assembly with the solution of the assembly.